after. So real quick, get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Quarantine Break. I'm Kiana Martin, founder of Eat Soccer, and I'm so excited for this session of We Are Ambassadors to have with you our featured guest, Nneya Richards. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, how are you guys? Hello.
So before we get into your story of how you've created this amazing career around your passions of fashion and travel and just creating digital content, can you share with our students what you believe were your childhood superpowers?
Oh my God.
And how you use things to open doors for yourself at such a young age?
I would say curiosity and my big mouth. And I think that both of them got me so far at a young age. I was always questioning. I would write like random reports and give to my mom during summer break that, we didn't have the internet as much when I was a kid, and we had Encyclopedia Britannica and on the computer, and so I would just research random things like the history of dolls and prepare reports for my mom, and she's like, thanks a lot, I didn't ask for this, but thanks. And so I think that definitely naturally led to my travel, my love of writing, my curiosity, and that I was never afraid to ask questions. So that's what I say when I mean when I say my big mouth. That's what got me. I met the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue, and she was going to be, and I told her my opinions on what a teen magazine should be like, and so she invited me to be a founding contributor, and at 16 years old when they were starting the magazine. So it was having those strong opinions that opened that door for me. So yeah, I would say those two for sure.
Now, how did you meet that contact that you had at Teen Vogue?
So I was at an event with my best friend from growing up in the city. Her dad is a fashion photographer. And so Arthur Elgort. So he had a studio, and there were fashion people. When we were at his studio, there were people like Naomi Campbell, Kate Moss, in and out of the studio. So this was an event that I went to with her. And we were just excited to dress up, to tell you the truth there. I didn't know networking was a thing. I wasn't really going to meet people. I was just bopping around, and I said, oh, well, you work at Vogue. I like the magazine, but I like it better than a lot of the other teen magazines that I'm reading. And it was a time when they had a bunch of teen magazines out. And they happened to be thinking that same idea, that they could start a Teen Vogue. And yeah, so that's how it all evolved, essentially. Yeah.
So what advice do you have for students so that they can discover what their natural set of talents and abilities are, and how they can use them when it comes to what they're passionate about?
I think in terms of discovering like your natural set of talents, it's about being still with yourself. I say, like, sit down, think about what you like to do. That's what's important. That's what, right now, what's happening with the pandemic, what fuels you. Because there are a lot of times where what I'm doing, to be frank, it's hard. It's trying to figure out, like, well, I'm working so hard, and am I getting this recognition? Am I making this amount of money? Would I like a thing with more stable?
Oh, okay. Let me see. We were talking about tie those into the things that they're passionate about.
Yeah, I do think it's a luxury to be able to work in something that's my passion. And so figuring out what you like to do and how that translates to a career. Maybe you like to write, and that could be a lot more things than a writer. It could be a copywriter. It could be turned into advertising. I had a friend who loved to write, and he ended up going into finance after college, and then he is one of the co-founders of a big production house right now. And so you never know what path it can take you. So figure out what those passions are, what you excel at, what you love to do, and then think about what's the need for it. Because that's how I end up in travel and fashion. I wanted to see more people that looked like me in the travel and fashion communities, especially travel. There have been leaps and bounds in diversity in fashion. And there's still a long, long way to go. And comparing the two industries, I would say that travel's definitely a decade behind in terms of who's writing the content, who is it for, and even who tourism boards are working with, you see in the ads. And that's, I wanted to speak to my people, speak to young men and women that looks like me and that grew up in Brooklyn and wanted to see the world and wanted to give them the opportunity to think about doing that. Yeah.
So what inspired your passions for fashion and travel?
Okay. Definitely my family. I would say my family is originally from Jamaica. So growing up, I had family in London, family in Jamaica, family in Toronto. And so growing up in an international family, we'd travel a lot to see family. We'd go on family vacations, and it was always something that I really like to do. I remember going to Disney World even with my grandmother when I was like 6 or 7. And one of my vacation best friends that I made in the pool, she was from Ireland, and we ended up becoming pen pals. So it was kind of that curiosity. Like she had a cool different accent, and I wanted to chat with her more. And that's how I made my first pen pal. And so I think that my family definitely encouraged and enabled it. And similar in fashion, that I had this creative outlet that I wanted to express, and I loved being able to do it. And like my grandmother is always serving looks. My grandfather is a very elegant man, and I, until starting at Teen Vogue, I didn't actually think about it as a career path. I didn't think about like the idea of magazine editors and what they did. You know, you see things, but you don't understand the team that goes behind that Beyonce photo shoot. And the more I learned about it, the more excited I was. I wanted to join the FBI, and then fashion got and I was like, okay, this is where I think I'll stay.
So what was your original kind of career background before you were able to like merge the two worlds and kind of expand it on your own?
So when I went to college, I studied women and gender studies and fine arts, and I went to a liberal arts school. So I would say 99% of the people in my major went to law school right after college. I thought that I went to school thinking I would be a psychologist. And then at one point I was very interested in PR, and I can't remember why I was suddenly interested in PR. I saw a journal entry. I actually found my journal from like summer camp, and I saw an entry from, when was it? Hold on, I'm gonna find it right now. It was wild in this is it. It was July 2003 that I mentioned wanting to be a PR agent or a psychologist. And so it was super interesting to me because I didn't remember that I had like ideas of PR when I was younger. I remember wanting to study psychology, and that's when my freshman year, I took a few classes along that route, and did not like them, and decided, okay, I'm loving these women and gender studies classes. But I didn't think I wanted to go to law school when I graduated. I graduated during the economic crisis of 2008, 2009. And it was a lot of money to be spending on school and not being sure. And so I thought maybe I want to join the FBI, but I had this background in fashion from Teen Vogue and from my previous internships. So that's when, in my head, apparently it was a seed implanted before, but in my head, that's when I started to revisit the idea of PR. And it was kind of with going with the skills that I had and seeing where it led me at the time that I got a job at BCBG. That was my first job in fashion officially, besides the Teen Vogue stuff. And that's like one job kind of led to the other, that it it really was happenstance, and would it have been different if I wasn't graduating during economic crisis? I think so, but I'm really happy with where I am.
So how would you say that you have created opportunities for yourself? Because I know you also moved from BCBG to working for Zach Posen and doing some other things in fashion, and then decided to make the leap from, okay, I'm just solely focused on fashion, to I'm going to add a travel component, and I'm actually going to branch out on my own and do digital content. So how did you create those opportunities for yourself?
I thought it was it was really interesting to me that a lot of those opportunities, I don't ever want to say it fell into my lap, that I work hard. And when people say that, when I hear other people say that, I think it takes away from the work that they were doing behind the scenes for those opportunities to happen. I just kept putting myself in front of people. My first job, I was there for 3 months at BCBG. It was one of those last hired, first fired situations, that there were 8 people in our department. They cut 4 of us. And the day that my health insurance was to kick in, I was fired. And so I was let go with a little bit of severance. And it was an opportunity for me, because I wasn't thrilled about being there. I was speaking to Eva Chen, and she was at Teen Vogue at the time, and was one of my mentors at the time. And I was telling her, it's not really quite a fit here. Like, maybe I want to go back to editorial on the magazine side. So there was always that pinging in me that I wanted to be writing. I wanted to be doing a little bit different, more creative than what I was doing in fashion PR. And from there, I went to Zach Posen. He was a designer whose work I loved. And I emailed like Brian Reyes at the time, Zach Posen, a few other places. And it was I took interviews at a bunch of places. It was a company that was a really good fit. I've always gelled very well in a startup environment. And I went there, and it was just boots on the ground, that I was hired first internship and then assisting the VP of marketing. And it was a place where at the time I could really grow. It was still during the crisis. So it involved me doing a lot more work than I was getting paid for. And knowing that I was going into it at that time, but nowhere was hiring. And for me, I didn't want to just quote unquote just sit at home. I'm trying to think if there was Instagram. Instagram had just started then. There wasn't as much of a content creation internet culture. So to me, it felt like it was really just sitting at home, and I wanted to be out there. I wanted to get that experience. And so having experience is invaluable. And so that's how I ended up there, and kind of pivoting and rolling and adding travel to it. Is always loving to travel and writing, and had someone who I knew that believed in my work, wanted me to write about a place, because I would send friends emails, and she was one of them. And I was recommending this place in Mexico, and she asked if I would be willing to put it in an article for StyleCaster.com. They were launching a new luxury site, and she was helming it. And I didn't think about it. I said, yeah, sure, if you like. From that email, travel places started to reach out to me saying, hey, would you like to come see our place? And it started to catapult that I never thought, I didn't know how to pitch myself, because I'm so freelance. So I've written for Vogue, I've written for Pop Sugar, but I didn't know I thought everyone that wrote for these publications were on staff. I didn't know about that whole culture of things. So again, going back to asking those questions, and that idea, there's no dumb question. So I asked a lot of people after people started to advise, oh, what publications can you write for? And I'm thinking, well, in PR, I worked with that editor at Vogue magazine, so maybe she can connect me to the lifestyle editor. And then there are times where even thinking about Vogue, when I started to write there, despite all of my contacts, my articles that have been published there have been from Kohl's email, from editors I did not know. And it was that I emailed them because I saw their name on the site, and I know that Condé Nast is first name _ last name at condenast.com. And so you learn those emails, like figure out those things, because when I worked with the White House, it was, again, a cold email that I emailed the list, like, the info at White House email. didn't think I would get an email call back, and when I did, I still thought it was kind of a prank. So yeah, I think that continuously putting yourself out there and doing that behind the scenes work, because nothing is just going to happen overnight, and it's not going to just happen out of thin air. So look up those contacts, and it doesn't matter how small. Get your foot in the door, get experiences. Sometimes the smaller companies give you the bigger responsibilities.
So to piggyback off of that, I know you mentioned like when you're working with some of these smaller companies, you've had to do a number of things. Is there a particular skill that wasn't really in the job description that you learned how to do that has served you later now in the career and business stuff that you're doing now?
Yeah, there's well, the idea of pitching. When I was in PR, I would get a lot of pitches from editors. So I kind of had this, I learned how it's formatted. And so now when I'm pitching my work or pitching myself to people, I have that idea in the back of my head. I have this like large like library of things that I've received being on the opposite end of things, learning that there's so with even event production. I love flowers. There's a lot of flowers around me now. And I remember a PR job at an agency where we were doing the press day, and the head of the agency was like, okay, can you do the flowers? I knew nothing about floral arrangements, but I liked it. so I do that. And then, you know, working with small designers now, that when we're doing the press day, I'm like, I can do the flowers. I can go to the floral market. Like I know the budgets about what things should be like. And yeah, so there's so many random skills, a lot of production skills that I learned on set that I had. One of the bigger examples, that being on photo shoots as a stylist, I was then offered a position as fashion director at New York Observer, one of their magazines. I'm speaking to my friend photographer and said, I've never produced a shoot before. Like, I don't know if I can be fashion director. She said, you'll figure it out. You've been on so many shoots, you know, like what entails. And that's what it was. It was going back, okay, so what's there? What are the parts? And that's another thing, that when you're in these situations, opportunities, look at what's going on around you, so that you're not just a cog in the wheel or just in your department. Figure out how other departments work, because maybe on my second, third, fourth shoot, I realized I wasn't into styling. I wanted to be a photographer instead, things like that. So it's going around, seeing what's happening on the set, seeing what's happening if you're in an office. What does the sales team do? When I was working with smaller designers, I had an idea of what sales did, because at BCBG, our offices were across from the sales team. And those times when I had to go and get samples from them, I like popped around and I asked, oh, what is this? What are you doing here? And not to make yourself a bother, but be observant what's going on around you. And the worst thing that someone can say is like, I guess they would say mind your business, but I haven't been told that. So, yeah.
So what would you, can you give us like a brief sneak peek into what your typical week is like as a content creator, as a travel expert, as someone on the global fashion scene?
Yeah. Every week is different. So it's to take you through different days, that there's a day where at least one day, it's usually more, where I am just creating content and I'm writing. So there's the photography aspect of it, and then there's the writing part of it. And so at least one day, two, should be three, that I should be writing for at least 3 days a week, but it just gets a little bit crazy that I'm writing. And during that time, I'm creating a lot of the content for my blog that's just going to sit on my blog. Simultaneously, the emails, I'm also pitching myself at least one day a week, whether it's to write for a publication, or it's based on a recent trip that I've taken, or if it's to talk to CBS This Morning about issues in the travel community today. I am a news junkie, so I'm always listening to the news, keeping up with that kind of stuff, like issues, what's going on in China with the African American population there, or why the State Department issued that. So it's keeping up with the news, and it's a lot of it is keeping up with the industry, what's happening, looking online, looking at, should I be on TikTok? How will TikTok serve my purpose if I am there? And so that's happening a lot. Then there's answering interview requests, answering photo requests, answering answering interview requests, answering photo requests, along those lines. And yeah, the week always goes by really, really quickly. So yeah, it's fun. And then also doing sometimes I have an assistant, sometimes I don't. And so it's also the back end, invoices, that's at least a day a week should be spent on that. I'm not as good about that. And so it's sometimes I have like times where I need to figure out and reflect on what I not just need to be better at, but also hire someone that can help me with it. I recently did that for videos, and it was a game changer when I had it in November and December. These things that would take me 2 hours to do a video content, it would take this person half an hour. And so it's constantly evaluating, figuring out what is going to be the best way to put my message out for people that need it. And yeah, answering emails, things like that. So I try to be at people's disposal as much as I can. And if it's and sometimes it's not, I don't have a photo shoot weekly, but sometimes I do. And if that's the case, then it's prepping for that shoot, meaning organizing the mood board, doing polls for the shoot, making sure like makeup, hair and makeup for the model, if I'm coordinating with that team, is ready, and like doing the clothes. Like sometimes I have an assistant, sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's me doing the trek to pick up the samples, then style the samples, making sure the pickups go smoothly after the shoot. So it's funny. It's a lot more labor intensive than people think. That sometimes I got a hernia once. So it's like, and I couldn't lift my carry-on. I played for a while, and from dragging those big IKEA bags around. And I went for a massage, and the woman was like, "You have the like my soreness in the back." She's like, "Of a trucker." And I was like, "Yeah," because I do a lot more labor intensive work than people might think. Yeah.
So you believe that we are all ambassadors. Why is that your belief, and how are you furthering that mission with the work that you're doing?
Oh, that's something that's so important to me. That's kind of the pillar of why I built my In a Perfect World brand. I find that traveling more, it bridges gaps and cultural misunderstandings. That if you can read the papers and, you've been to Milan. So what you're seeing in this news, that it's like, oh, it's just dregs there right now. You have this different vision of it. Same with you. I remember when I studied abroad, I studied in Milan, and it was during the Bush administration, and people had this idea of Americans. I just think, like, even regardless of politics, he was from Texas. And then you add that with our president being from Texas, and then like the idea of like John Wayne and like gun-toting, burger-eating cowboys. That's who we were. And I found that being from New York also helped. It was a little bit different. So people were like, "Oh, but you're New Yorkese," is what the Milanese would say. Like, you're not from the rest of America. But I think giving people a perception that if they have never seen a Black American before, that we're not all Beyonce and Jay-Z's, that we're just, it's a wide range of us. And I think from different cultures, being that ambassador, because you can hone in on, or you can call back to an experience that you had in this certain country. So yeah, this might be a bad thing that's happening on the news there right now, but it's not or the government there, their policy is not reflective of the kind people that I met that made my stay there so amazing. Because at the end of the day, a visitor to a country isn't dealing, for the I guess it varies a lot of country, but for the most part, they're not dealing with the government and their policies. So how the people treat you is what you're most affected by and what is going to make the country stay in your head. So we're all ambassadors. We're all kind of that goodwill and navigating the relationship between our countries as travelers. That's what we are. So that's what, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so that's why it's so important to me that we all consider ourselves with that duty of being ambassadors.
Do you feel like your perspective has changed slightly just in how Americans are perceived, or even people of other, backgrounds, because you spend the bulk of your time living in Milan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yes.
And just what the work culture is like compared to, being in New York City, most of us are always like, go, go, go. And what that's like for you living and working there the majority of the year.
Yeah, the time, the value of family time. And my family is a very close-knit family. We're in each other's space all the time. But there is such a strong emphasis on taking a break, and Milan is kind of the New York of Italy, that they are even faster paced than the rest of Italy, but they do take time. They respect that hour lunch break. Some places are closed during the hour. They have that August break that they are taking time out to spend with their people. And that time and that value of that is definitely important to me. I'm a New Yorker at heart. I am go, go, go. But I see the night, like there's a shift in me that happens. And sometimes it's not always easy when I go back and I'm like, why is it I emailed them like 12 hours ago and they are not like, yeah, I didn't email them that late. I emailed them at 5:30. They should have still been in the office. What's happening? But then it's just like, chill out. It's not the end of the day. You're freaking out about a pair of pants. And it's that like relax, like, and simmer down. And just seeing a lot of different things, like for better or worse, about how we do things here, that I do find in New York, in America, things are a little bit more efficient and less bureaucratic and for my line of work. And it's a give and take of both culture and learning to appreciate both. So it's that appreciation for little things. I remember when I was living in London, I got a letter from the post office. I had a package, and it's never that easy in New York getting your package. It's always like at least 20 minutes is a fast wait there to pick up something. So I go to London, I'm like ready to like just be vexed. And then I pass them the slip and they're like, okay. And all it was 3 minutes. And I was like, whoa, because that was so easy and so pleasant. And I was telling my partner, he goes, well, it's a package pickup point. That's all, they're back and forth. That's how it should be. And it's like, oh, how efficient of them. And so it's not like I think America's the end all for efficiency and stuff like that. So you give and take. There are certain places that are good for this and good for that. I miss a pizza, a nice like pizza here is $20. I'm not about that. I'm about the €6 life or a pizza margarita. I miss that deeply. So yeah.
What are some of the funny things that happen in your line of work?
Oh, so many yeah. Oh, yeah. It's the people, the different personalities that you meet at the end of the day in fashion and travel. We're people with a lot of wanderlust, a lot of fashion people. Some of them are like the weirdos that didn't necessarily fit in. And you found a place, you found a community. So it's a lot of personalities in both fields, and just the interaction with personalities. I was on a work trip in Israel, and we kept rerouting our trip every day for an older gentleman. He was in his 60s. For him, and the PR people have to be really accommodating. And I always keep that in my head when I have requests, because I was on that other side. So we had to keep rerouting our trip every day because this guy had to be back at a certain hour in Tel Aviv. He just said, I need to take a nap. Like, I prefer to take a nap. And there are 8 of us. So we had to reroute for his naps. One day I'm like peeking over and I realized he was like meeting dates during this nap. And so it was just like bizarre, like personalities that you come across on sets. Oh, my scarf fell on shoots. I think that's what keeps it funny, keeps it interesting for me, that things that I've seen be really public, become really public, that you see the behind the scenes of, like, that person accidentally falling on the runway went viral and turned into a huge moment, more so than it did. So there are like a lot of those. I remember once I was working with Lindsay Lohan and her mom. At the time I was in my early 20s and my boyfriend was picking me up from work, and they came after, like, Lindsay's people came very late. And so he was there to pick me up from work, and the mom like gave him her keys and was like, "Oh, do you think you can like park our car?" And he was just like, okay, I guess.
Did he park their car?
Yeah, because he just like didn't really know what to do. And he was like, I'm from Connecticut, I could drive, why not? So it was just like bizarre personalities that you deal with in the industry have always been my favorite part of the job, and yeah, I think will continue to be. And I'm a writer at the end of the day, and so I keep that in my bank about creating these characters. So yeah.
Tell us 3 things that you always carry in your travel bag and why.
3 things I always carry. Well, now the safe thing would be hand sanitizer, wouldn't it? Yeah. So that is, I actually, for probably the last year, one of the things I always carried in my travel bag was this desanitizing spray for airline, the trays. You know, I would read those about that. They're so unsanitary a lot of the time. And so I did always carry that desanitizing spray before all of this. Another thing I always carry is my Kindle. Downtime, I usually can fall asleep on a plane, but I love reading, so that's something that I always have to have with me. And an extra pair of underwear. I still haven't gotten out of that habit that my parents broke me into when I was a little kid. Like, always carry. We'll have it used to be like a full outfit, and I'm pretty sure my mom still packs like that, but I've whittled it down to have an extra pair of underwear in case your luggage gets lost or something like that. So yeah.
Is there a bucket list of either places, experiences, or brands that you would love to work with? And if so, can you tell us a couple?
Yes, places. I would love to go to Zanzibar and Tanzania soon. And I recently went, or last year I went to South Africa, and that was a bucket list place for me. And it was weird, like people were like, what animal are you most excited to see on the safari? And I was most excited to see a giraffe, that people thought was, why a giraffe? And to me, I didn't really see them in zoos before, and lions, all that like seemed real to me, but giraffes were such goofy looking animals that I was so excited to see one in the flesh, in the wild. So that was one that happened. Zanzibar and Tanzania. I want to go to more places in Africa, on the continent. I've been to some places in South America, a lot in Europe, and it's kind of how tourism boards are broken down and who they work with. And even a lot of places in a lot of countries in Africa, especially with luxury tourism, they're catering to the white traveler. So a lot of the time on those trips, you'll see a lot of the travel writers are old white men, and the industry is changing. The demographic that we're looking at, the way that the people look, that's slowly starting to change. And I think Africa is one of the continents, or in a lot of their locales, are one of the ones that are a little bit slower because of their like adventure trips. They're looking at older white men going on them. So I think in a lot of those countries, Senegal is on my list. It's been so for a while, and so that's definitely a bucket list destination for me. And in terms of brands, I love discovering new brands and new messaging. I'm a little bit of a marketing junkie. Like, I'm always curious about what they're doing And for me, it's always amazing. I love working with smaller designers. I love working with startup, established brands, but those that are kind of resonate as home to me. Like right now, I really want to work with Oil of Olay because I was at my mom's and I was putting on the skin cream and the smell of it reminds me so much of her and my grandmother. And so brands that I have a story connection to, those are always going to be on my bucket list. Like, if I could get a campaign for Dettol, the way that West Indians are suggesting that you use Dettol to disinfect yourselves right now, they had to recently make an announcement to say that is, you cannot inject it, do not inject it or ingest it to your career. So it's always changing, and that's something that's important with your career, being able to pivot. So yeah, if as long as someone is not offensive, that they have a great mission, that trickles down, that it's not just having me on their marketing campaign, but then you go and there are no women, there are no people of color on the exec board. I like that trickled down with brands, that as much on the front, they are in the back end. And so I'm a really open person with that. So anyone with a good message would be on my bucket list to work with, especially right now, because there's a lot of not that.
So for students who are interested in figuring out ways to combine their passions to become digital content creators, what are some of the resources that you suggest that they take a look at?
For students that are interested, I think that I look at students to inspire me. They are a lot of times in that age demographic that we are always trying to catch up with. Like, look at TikTok, even like the growth of Snapchat. So they are in that kind of fertile ground of creativity. And I'm so inspired by students especially when I see them on TikTok. I'm trying to learn these dances. They take me so long. Like, how do you guys just learn them in an afternoon? And so for them to be a digital creator, I think this is the best time. The path that I took in my career, you don't have to. You have an audience. Like, you can build your audience by directly writing. You can create things for yourself. I think when bloggers first started, a lot of the fashion industry was really threatened by them because it was this egalitarian, like it equalized the game, that anyone with an opinion can have an opinion, for better or worse now. And so for students, I'd give you guys the advice to just start creating, build your portfolio. I've had interns, I had assistants that work for me, and their portfolio is what they've been doing. If they weren't at a publishing house, they weren't published officially, but they've been putting out work and putting out content, and I'm impressed and inspired by that, because it also shows me you're doing it because you love it. Like, a lot of my blog I'm writing not because I get paid for it, because like I have viewers that they want this content, they want to hear my perspective on things. And so for me to see you have that passion, that you're not on this world stage, like, I know, like, with that drive, you're going to go far. So I would recommend that there are a lot of webinars out there about how to be a digital creator. And I think that they can give you some really good tips in terms of, like, the cameras that you should be using. That's what I'm usually looking at when I go there. How people structure their day, like more detailed breakdown about how, and I think that's where those are useful. So some webinars, but there's so much free information out there right now that I encourage students to really listen as much as they can and take in all of that information and start creating. Just start, you'll grow. You'll see your work change and grow. So don't be afraid. And that's something I'm continuously reminding myself, don't be afraid to put it out there, because that's not exactly what you had in mind for it. Your work will grow and evolve, and you'll take in suggestions and things like that.
So where can students find your work and you online and on social?
And A Perfect World is my blog. So the letter N, because of the two N's in my name, aperfectworld.com. And my social is at Nneya, Nneya. Yeah.
Lastly, what is your best piece of career advice that you would give to your younger self?
Oh, yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I've been reading my old journal. And I think to my younger self, and I'm thinking about myself in my early 20s when I started my career, it's okay to not want to exactly join the rat race of how things should look. And I think that when I started in PR, I thought like this was going to be my path, and I would look directly to my bosses and, you know, this is what it's going to be like in 5 years, and I'm going to have that position. And I think that for me, there was a lot of comfort in that, you know, if you start an assistant, then you're coordinator, then you're a manager or director, and it goes along those tiers. And I would tell my younger self to figure out what you like to do and what you're good at, and you'll thrive. Because there were some jobs that I was in and really unhappy, and I stayed longer than I should because I thought it was where I was supposed to be. I had to do this because to get to that next step. But it also taught me tolerance, so I wouldn't take it back. But I would tell myself that it's it's okay to forge your own way to do this.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your awesome and inspiring journey with us, Nneya. Now, for those students who want to tune in at 4 o'clock, we are going to feature international performer, choreographer, and teaching artist, Jessie Sector. So thank you so much for joining. Thanks again, Nneya.
I brought my globe, and I thought we could do like a spin it together, and you tell me when to stop, and that's what my next trip would be on. Okay. All right. Tell me when.
Okay.
Ooh, my ring is getting caught. Ooh. So I got this globe when I was in 4th grade, so I guess that's another sign that I was going to be. So tell me when to stop.
Okay, stop.
All right. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Japan, which I have not been to.
I haven't either, and it's on my list.
It's on my list. It's one of those places I really, really want to go. So I am thrilled at your pick. Yes. Yes. That's a good one. I was like, oh, it's going to be like, actually, there's no place I don't want to go. So I would have taken it. But Japan is one of the places that's on my list. So I'm quite happy.
Okay, everybody add it to your list. Thank you so much, Nneya.
Bye.